what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today being February 16th, essentially the 16th, it's 11:58 at night. It's basically Tuesday at this point. First of all, happy reset day. But yeah, so with it being the 16th of February, we have Blizzcon in about 4 or so days, give or take. So I want to take some time today and talk to you guys about a few things that we should be expecting at Blizzcon, as well as a few predictions and things that I actually hope to see at Blizzcon. Now, this is not a video that's going to be totally related to Warlocks, more of a general Warcraft kind of thing. But with there being 9.0.5 on PTR, hopes of 9.1 coming up relatively soon, there's a good bit to actually talk about, discuss, and I guess you could say speculate on. And with there being, BlizzCon, it's always one of my favorite things to do every year, is speculate on what we're going to see at BlizzCon. The cool thing about virtual BlizzCon is that they're allowing for co-streaming of the event, which is something we haven't really seen in the past, mainly because, well, tickets to BlizzCon cost a couple $100s. But with this year, BlizzCon's actually free. There is a handful of merch, mounts, and things you can buy, which nothing's ever totally free, but still, they're allowing co-streaming of BlizzCon this year, which is awesome. So with that being said, I am going to be actually streaming the opening ceremony and pretty much most of the World of Warcraft scheduling for both the 19th and the 20th on my Twitch channel. If you want to swing by and watch that with me, I'm sure I'll have a lot of videos being made and put out at that point as well, but hey, it's fun nonetheless. So this is the actual schedule here, briefly. 19th, 20th. This is the 19th. It starts about 5 p.m. Eastern for me, so 2 p.m. Pacific, and it runs essentially until the Warcraft deep dive and everything runs until about, I would say, probably, what is this, like 7:10 p.m. Yeah, 7:10 p.m. So we have about 2.5 hours, give or take. I'm actually not sure what this brief snippet is here. Making of the Wandering Ancient. Oh, fair. There we go. That'll actually be a part of this video. So yeah, Friday having about 2.5 hours of BlizzCon, which is awesome. And then Saturday we have a decent bit as well. Can I actually see Saturday here? Or Saturday? There we go. Saturday has a decent bit of Q&A stuff, which I would assume probably the most of like the meat and potatoes of what we're going to see in 9.0.5 and 9.1 that we haven't seen, or I guess speculated upon at this point, will probably be addressed in here if we haven't heard about it in the What's Next panel, which is only about half an hour long. So let's be real here. I hope that 9.1 has more things to cover than just whatever they can in half an hour. But regardless, with that being said, let's get into a few things that I want to talk about. Some things that are a bit speculatory, some things that are maybe a bit confirmed, the Wandering Ancient, and some things I'd like to see at this year's BlizzCon. So one of the really cool things about BlizzCon this year, and even the last week or so leading up to BlizzCon, is the fact we've already gotten a decent bit of information about 9.0.5, which is the next PTR build, but it's also a bit different from most PTR builds that we've seen. Blizzard has clarified that 9.0.5 is more or less going to be a class, spell tuning, covenant, conduit, legendary tuning patch, which is really interesting because normally we don't see those on PTR. You see 9.1, 9.2, 8.1, 8.2, so on and so forth, and they'll do most of the class and spell tuning and whatever abilities, or I guess you could say systems they have, like the Heart of Azeroth and Azerite, in the actual raid testing patch itself. 9.0.5, from what we've seen, is not going to be a raid patch. Now, a lot of people have mentioned, well, is there a possibility that they end up sneaking in a mini raid like we had for Crucible Storms? Looking at the actual release dates from Uldir, now I'm going to be real here. Sorry, flashbang warning, boys. I'm going to be real here. Uldir released September 4th. Crucible Storms didn't happen until after Battle of the Zaralor. Now, that's not to say they couldn't release a mini raid after the first raid, but looking at BOD's release date, January 22nd, and you have Crucible Storms being April 16th. Shadowlands has been out for what, about 2.5 months or so now, I believe, give or take, which is about about the same time wise between BOD and Crucible Storms. Looking at September and January, there's about a 4.5 month break here. So is the possibility of a mini raid totally outside the realm of possibility? No, but I don't really think it's something we're going to see. I think it would be exceptionally hard for them to release a 9.0.5 PTR client and not have some kind of tiny bit of information that data mined that they missed in some way, shape, or form. I don't think we're going to see it. It's just something would have been found at this point, and even in the initial PTR data mining, to I guess imply that it's going to be a 9.0.5 raid. Now, is it outside the realm possibility? No, but I don't really know where they go storyline wise with it. But one of the really interesting things to me is even when 0.5, I guess 0.5, I guess we'll call it that from now on, concludes, how long is it going to be until 9.1 actually hits? Because they've mentioned in their actual post about 9.0.5 that they want it out in March. They're not talking about releasing this in April or May. So they want to get most of the class tuning done over the course of February, BlizzCon after BlizzCon, and then have this out in March. But the question then is, when is 9.1 and the actual raid going to hit PTR? My assumption is that we're going to hear a lot more about 9.1 at BlizzCon, like most everybody else. By the way, if you haven't guessed, the zone that I am guessing the next raid is going to be in is Maldraxxus. Now listen, I don't have any kind of inside information. There's been rumors floating around for a while that Maldraxxus is indeed going to be the 9.1 raid. I'll be real here, man. How can you not like Maldraxxus? It's probably the coolest zone in Shadowlands at this point. But regardless of whatever actual zone it ends up being in, as long as the raid is good, you know, I'm pretty happy with it. But like I said, my biggest concern or area of interest is how long are we actually going to be in 9.0.5 on PTR before 9.1 if 0.5 is coming out in March. I would assume that 0.5 PTR is probably active until like early March, and we see release like mid to week 3 of March, and then 9.1 hits PTR probably about right after then, unless they want, if they want the raid out in like May, because assuming it's even an 8 boss raid, that's probably about a month and a half of raid testing. Well, I guess you could do 4 bosses per week. Probably about a month or so of raid testing, if that's an 8 boss raid, and they'll end up testing all of Heroic into Mythic and testing multiple bosses multiple times, like we saw in Castle Nathria with the Council of Blood and Legion Generals, and you know, that's a mess in itself. But I think the possibility is there that we're actually in PTR for a while, and I think the possibility is also there that we might see a really short downtime between 0.5 and 0.1 PTR. Either way, I expect to hear a lot more about this at BlizzCon, and well, I'm hoping that I'm right about the Maldraxxus raid, because let's be real, once again, Maldraxxus is probably the best zone in Shadowlands, and maybe outside of Revendreth, but I honestly, it's Maldraxxus, and I don't really think it's very close. Now, on top of all the 0.5 and 9.1 PTR speculation, I assume we're probably going to have a pretty hectic testing cycle over the next probably couple of months, with raid testing and 0.5 PTR and all that being taken into account. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say we're probably going to get a tentative release date for the raid at BlizzCon, the 9.1 raid, and I'm going to say, looking at how things are currently structured and I would imagine dated, we're probably going to see it mid-May. I'm assuming once again that 9.0.5 hits live mid-March, and then we have about a month and a half or so of raid testing, which does seem a bit short to me for 9.1's raid. But let's be real here, the game came out in December, and I think pushing a raid back till June after the very first tier is probably going to deter a decent bit of the player base from playing the game for 6 months. We were stuck in Nilotha for a long enough time. I don't think they really want to do that again. So I'm going to say mid-May. I get week 2, week 3 for the release of 9.1, but hey, you know, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully it's sooner than that. On top of that, I also think there's a pretty high chance of seeing more legendaries introduced for each spec in the game. Now, each spec has their own handful of legendaries, Aft, Escher, Demo, and even the other classes outside of Warlock. I don't think we're going to be getting 5 or 6 more per class, but I think there's a pretty good chance that we actually end up seeing probably 1 more for each spec, and maybe a generic one. I think for the most part, the universal legendaries that aren't class-based, the ones like the Maw Rat Harness and the Jailer's Eye, whatever those are, for the most part, I don't think they've probably been as impactful as Blizzard hopes. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them tuned a bit over the course of 9.0.5, but I would also assume they probably want to introduce a handful of new legendaries to keep things a bit spicy and everything, you know, over the course of next year. So we'll see where that goes. But I'm going to tentatively say hopefully mid-May release for the Maldraxxus raid, and a handful of new legendaries introduced for each class. I would assume probably in the opening ceremonies, hopefully at least the Warcraft section of BlizzCon. Now, the second big announcement I'm expecting from BlizzCon, and I would assume probably most everybody else is at this point, is, well, classic Burning Crusade. Now, I started playing the game in Burning Crusade pretty much towards the very end of vanilla. I didn't start doing anything really until BC actually launched. So classic Burning Crusade hits home to me. There's a lot of nostalgia there, but I do know that looking at how classic WoW's release went, there's a lot of fragmentation between the actual retail community and the actual Classic, whether you want it to be vanilla or Burning Crusade, or hey, let's be real here, Wrath's gonna happen at some point too, right? I think the next big announcement is probably going to be Classic Burning Crusade, and I also think that you very well might end up seeing Classic BC PTR, probably beta at this point, really soon. I think it's not outside the realm of possibility that they actually announced Burning Crusade beta to be open for play like the weekend after BlizzCon. It's awkward because BlizzCon I was initially supposed to be presumably in November of last year, which where it normally is, end of October into November. So if they've had Classic Burning Crusade in their development cycle for a while, which depending on how in depth they want to go, it's probably not as in depth as making a new expansion, there's a decent possibility that they drop BC beta pretty soon after BlizzCon and maybe have a release date somewhere around like April-ish. I think the big question though when it comes to Burning Crusade, which by the way I want y'all's opinion on this, but I think the big question with Burning Crusade is how are they going to stagger the actual release of BC content? Number one, how are they going to do phases? And number two, how are they going to stagger the actual release of Burning Crusade content? Because thinking back to how Classic and Live went, there was a good bit of overlap with different phases. You had actual Nax releasing, I believe Nax released like what, a week after Shadowlands launch, which was like terrible timing. But at a certain point, what can you do? COVID's pushed things back. Release dates have been, you know, a bit sketchy to be fair, but there's more time to actually plan for, well, Classic, you know, BC release. So I'm interested to see their actual timetable there. Now, I did mention before, I assume that 9.1 ready to probably be out. At least 9.1 will be out probably somewhere like mid-May-ish, as long as things can probably stay on schedule. And I could be wrong there, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Classic Burning Crusade release somewhere around May, April-ish. It could be earlier, you know, really not sure. And let's be real here, nothing's been confirmed, but there's been a lot of speculation over the last few weeks and months really about, hey, what's going on with BC? There are a handful of streamers who are already making Burning Crusade guilds and taking applications for them. They probably know more than I do, but you know, it is what it is. Like I mentioned though, the pacing and the actual phases of Burning Crusade are a big concern to me, because I don't want it to be like actual BC release where you have Black Temple essentially open on day one. It took a lot longer to get into Black Temple when BC was actually a thing. It won't take that long this time. Bosses are still going to die really easily. It might be a little more challenging than Classic in certain ways, but bosses are still going to fall over. The game is just different now at this point. I think a lot of it is the actual nostalgia factor. I don't really think that it's something that's going to be, oh hey, you know, this is something that's brand new or something we haven't done in forever, we're gonna wait for hours. No, I don't think so. There have been, you know, let's be real here, private BC servers for a very long time, but I do indeed expect BC announcement at some point at BlizzCon, probably during the opening ceremony. Let's be real. My big question to you guys, and I'm actually going to have a link to a poll in the video description here. I want to know if you guys want to actually see me cover Burning Crusade content from more or less a Warlock perspective, both on YouTube and on stream, potentially one, most likely both. I'm going to say it really matters a lot on the actual release date, because Classic WoW released during like Mythic Hall of Fame Ashara progression. That was miserable. That was the worst month and a half of my life. I'm not doing that again. So hopefully Blizzard gets that timing down, but if they actually do, I'm curious to see what you guys think and what you guys want to see. So if you have some time, feel free to vote in the poll below. But I can say, personally, from a nostalgia side of things, I'm excited for Classic Burning Crusade. So now that we've gotten all of the Burning Crusade Classic hype and 9.1 hype out of the way, I want to talk to you guys about something that I get a lot of questions about and something that I'm hopefully excited to see back to some extent at BlizzCon. Tier sets. I'm going to say I hope tier sets are back at BlizzCon. I would assume at this point that they are probably going to be. Now, once again, I don't have any insider information here. I don't think nothing is guaranteed. I don't think that's actually a tier set right there, for what it's worth. Yeah, anyways, classic Wowhead. But either way, I think tier sets, to some extent, to a similar extent than what we've seen them, will probably be announced and be making a return in 9.1. Now, there are two ways they spin that. One, tier sets, and one, well, you know, a change to legendaries, which we'll get to in a bit here. But I think that we're going to see tier return. I mean, Ian already mentioned in a recent interview, or an interview, I believe, during beta, that they want to bring back tier to some extent. And the team is already working on developing tier sets as far as like aesthetics and things go. The big issue that I feel right now with tier sets is legendaries. How do you implement a tier set if you're looking at this current form? Now, I don't think we're going to have 6-piece and 8-piece bonuses at this point, but even thinking back to Legion when we last had legendaries, number one, Number one, at a certain point, you're able to wear 2 legendaries in Legion, but they were on predetermined slots of gear. You had Norganons on boots, you had Sepus on a ring, you had different effects on one piece of gear, and those pieces of gear, they built tier sets around. You know, now you ended up wearing, typically you're wearing a 4-piece from one raid and 2 from another, as long as they weren't complete garbage for you, but you were able to work them around legendary slots. And depending on how strong the actual tier bonuses were, at times they forced out one of your best legendaries for a, I guess you can say, a semi-subpar one, but it was better when combined with an old 4-piece and a new 2-piece, or vice versa. The issue with that in actual Shadowlands, though, is that you don't really have the option. Like, legendaries drop not, there's 2 sets or 2 pieces. You can make them on a helm. You can put it on a helm, you can put it on a belt, you can put it on a neck, you can put it on your wrist here. There are different choices you have here. And it puts you in an awkward spot because, let's say, for example, I made synergy on my helm, and my other option, let's just say for simplicity's sake, was bracers. We know that it's shoulders. Let's say it was helm or bracers. If I make it on a helm and I've already maxed it out and put a socket on it and everything, and they release a tier bonus and it has a helm slot on it, but not bracers, well, then I'm sort of in a weird spot at this point. So I like tier the way that it was. I'd love to see it back with 2 pieces and 4 pieces, and having the option of wearing old 4 pieces with a new 2-piece, and vice versa when a new raid comes out. I think that offers the most customization, the most optimization for classes, and that's what I really enjoy in WoW. But I don't think we're going to be seeing a return of this exact tier. It's just totally just a speculatory guess, but I've read a lot about this and had a lot of discussions on stream lately. I think what we're going to see, or at least I would assume, we're going to see something along the lines of being able to just straight up apply a tier bonus to a piece of gear that you're wearing. I would assume, this is sort of my guess here, being able to apply it to a piece of gear that you're wearing, a non-legendary piece of gear, I would say, and go from there. Having a token drop similar to what weapons are in Castle Nathria right now, you know, the anima beads, maybe like some kind of tier bead that corresponds to, you know, paladin, priest, warlock, and shaman, that you can apply an actual effect to, let's say, you know, your robe or your shoulders or your chest. That gives you a lot more customization. It doesn't pigeonhole you into making, you know, a legendary, or having to craft a second version of a legendary on, let's say, let me see here. Perfect. On your ring here, if you made it on your shoulders, because shoulders are normally a tier bonus piece, but your rings really never are, unless you're going back to like Burning Crusade, or I guess like vanilla or Burning Crusade times in tier 6, you know. So I would assume that's probably one of the better ways to actually tackle that, by first of all bringing back tier bonuses and giving the player base more what they want customization wise, and number 2, just giving a little bit of leeway, because, you know, this will actually lead into something here as well. There's no way to actually catch up on Soul Ash if you're behind. Let's just say hypothetically that you haven't missed any kind of Soul Ash, I guess, weekly resets in game. At this point, I'm sitting on roughly, how much do I have? I have 777, seven Soul Ash in game right now. I have a rank 4 synergy helm. I have rank 3 cinders, legendary legs made for destruction. I have corruption slow legs, rank 1 made for affliction and arenas. That's a meme in itself. And I have rank 4 Wilfred's wrist wraps of superior summoning, Wilfred's. So I have 2 rank 4 legendaries, 1 rank 3, and a rank 1. Now that's been, and I have 800 Soul Ash left at this point. This has been, for the most part, more or less min-maxing Soul Ash. I have not missed a week of Torghast in either wing. I've done the whole quest line, and whenever an actual Soul Ash mission pops up, well, I end up doing it. Even though I'm Night Fae and Dreamweaver sort of sucks now, we get it done. The issue that I think they're going to have going into later stages of Shadowlands, number 1, is that they're tuning legendaries in 9.0.5. They already mentioned that. Now, for example, synergy is in a weird spot for warlocks. This is our Bis legendary for affliction. Very good for Destro, arguably Bis depending what you're doing. It's also good for demonology. I don't know of any other classes that have a universal legendary like this, and a universally good one that's not, you know, it's awkward, and it makes me wonder if that's something they're looking to target for a bit of a nerf heading into, you know, 9.0.5 and then eventually 9.1. Now, this has a trickle-down effect, because if I'm on an alt and I want to say, okay, let's make a warlock, what do you make? Synergy, bam, you make it. You, first of all, you don't have any way to catch up on the Soul Ash you've missed in the past 2.5 months at Torghast. That's an issue in itself. There probably needs to be some kind of Soul Ash catch-up mechanic implemented in game to make that a thing. Number two, once again, we know that 9.0.5 is on PTR right now, and for what it's worth, I think it's very good they're tuning legendaries and covenants and soul binds and all that garbage now, so we know we have, you know, a bit of knowledge ahead of time on what we want to make and what we don't want to make. Let's say, for example, I was at 0 soul ash right now. Here is reset being tomorrow, and let's say you bring in roughly 1,000 per week. I think it's like 1,100 or so. Let's just say 1,000 for simplicity's sake. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. This is getting into March. 5, 6, 7, 8, and you have basically 8,000 soul ash April 6th, and so 8,000 is, you know, relevant because your cap is actually 8,000, so there's a bit of wiggle room here. But let's say you look at, you know, a guide and say this is really good for this spec, right? Okay, we'll make this, we'll make rank 4, we'll invest 5,000 whatever soul ash into it, and then they end up nerfing it, and well, now you're in a weird spot because you spent most of your soul ash, you know, in like mid-March, early March, and you're not set up for whatever ends up coming out in April or May. That wouldn't really be an issue though if soul ash was around as a catch-up. Now, once again, I do think you probably need to be a bit careful with your soul ash now because of tweaking and tuning going on. Listen, I already have Synergy made, I already have Wilfred's made. Cinders is awesome to play with as Destro, but they all are subject to potential nerfing, right? And not even just that, certain covenants might end up getting buffed or nerfed, which might add value to some. If Nephrilord ends up being, you know, well, what they were on beta for Warlocks, the Malefic Wrath could gain some value. There's a lot that can change tuning wise that could affect what legendaries you want to wear. But regardless of that, I think one of the bigger missing things right now is the fact that there's no soul ash catch up in the game. I assume Blizzard didn't really want this in place for 9.0 being the first patch and having a large, I guess, amount of the player base playing the game. But we've seen, you know, account wide layers on Torghast become a thing over the last few weeks. I think a really good thing to talk about at BlizzCon would actually be, hey, soul ash is going to have a catch up system. You know, I would assume it's probably something along the lines of just doing wings you didn't do previously, or, you know, completing multiple wings per week. And I think they could structure it probably in a very similar way to what they've done with Conquest at this point. Conquest, and even I believe Valor, is going to function in the same way. This system here, having a limit of what you can bring in total, but being able to make up the previous Conquest, the previous, you know, Valor or Soul Ash, whatever it is, by doing more per week is amazing. This is so great because it keeps players engaged in content, or it also allows them to catch up on content they missed out on without really being punished. I think having a system like this in place, or something similar for Soul Ash by just running more Torghast, would be a really good thing to see in 9.1. Let's be real here, I'm halfway through Corridors. I don't want to do more Torghast, but if it means I'm going to be able to wear a better legendary and actually have, you know, good legendaries on my alts, be able to make a rank 4 the week of hitting 60, I'll see you in Torghast. Now, I think one of the final things we could see, I don't think it's as relevant or as likely as seeing tier sets or tier bonuses, tier anima beads, whatever you want to call them, but I think the possibility is still there, and that possibility is double legendaries. Now, I've made a video on this already because number one, it's cool to speculate on, and number two, it's really cool to see the actual numbers when simming two legendaries together and the added synergy they get when you play them with one another. This is actual Emerald Nightmare logs from way back in Legion. We ended up having double legendaries in Emerald Nightmare. I assumed and sort of thought that we got them like mid-Nighthold and things, but no, looking back, we actually had them in Emerald Nightmare. It just took a lot of resources, and eventually hitting that final node on your like Covenant Hall, I guess, you know, Legion Order Hall's progression. We're at that point in Shadowlands now. Once again, there's a lot that's going into, that has to sort of go into play here with, you know, tier sets that they end up coming back and double legendaries being a thing. One, because there's two pieces you can put an effect on, right? Like wrists and hands, you have shoulders and finger here. But I also think this is a good thing because it gives you customization. And I mean, let's be real here, like there's not a whole lot of overlap. You have neck and wrist and hands, waist and feet, wrist and finger. But even if you have this made on your, let's say your bracers or your hands, and you have this made on your bracers as well, you still have the option of making another slot here. And if tier bonuses came back and did end up being some kind of anima bead like drop based system that you could apply to any piece of gear, that would coincide really well with double legendaries. Now, once again, I don't think there's as high of a chance of getting this back as there is tier gear heading into 9.1. But I do really think that if Blizzard doesn't take the opportunity for double legendaries, it's, well, honestly, it's a huge missed opportunity. We ran Destro Sims, Demo Sims, Affliction Sims, and some of the synergy between specific effects, like actually seeing Grim Inquisitors, this is not very good, FYI, most of the time, it's okay. But this gains so much value in Sims with Forces of the Horned Nightmare, because apparently if this casts the Hand of Gul'dan, the shards count towards this, even though it sort of shouldn't, because you're not spending shards, you sort of are. There's a lot of synergy here. As far as destruction went, Cinders and Madness, they're really good in single target. It's very close to Cinders and just synergy in general. These two combined with one another is going to feel like almost playing Nilotha Destruction. You have 3 conflict rates, you have hasted Chaos Bolts. In a Havoc window, Havoc's duration was increased by 2 seconds. In like later beta, I believe, for actual Destro and Shadowlands. It's going to feel actually insane. And even as far as AF is concerned, okay, hey, you have Agony Shard Gen, you have a synergy, so there you go. But looking at other effects like Sacrilash's Dark Strike, this brings a bit of a damage buff, but also a lot of utility in Mythic Plus. Playing this with like Agony Shard Gen or synergy, Wrath Consumption being an effect that's actually really strong in Plus or AoE settings a lot of the time, if you can use it, is really powerful. Would I want to play this right now as my only legendary effect? Probably not, because synergy is just universally solid, and same with Agony. But if you have a really strong effect and one that's good, like Corruption Slow or good here, with a really high upside on certain packs and certain dungeons, or a lot of utility, these combinations become a lot more relevant. Now, I guess there is a world where you can have both like double legendaries and tier gear. That's a pretty insane power gain going from 9.0 to 9.1. It's less of a chance than getting tier gear, I feel, in 9.1. But if given the option, I would rather see double legendaries than tier gear. It's close, they're both awesome, but in the end, I think there's a lot of min-maxing potential optimization here. And let's be real, hey, you know, we got them early in Legion. Why not get them early in Shadowlands? Now, I think it goes without saying for the most part that hey, I guess this is a bit of a hot topic. 9.1, I would assume that we probably get flying in Shadowlands. Now, there actually is not a Shadowlands Pathfinder achievement in game as far as I've seen, but I believe that Ian Hesychosis did confirm or mention that in 9.1 they were looking at actually adding flying to Shadowlands, but there wasn't going to be multiple Pathfinder achievements, really just being one. And that I would presume something along the lines of probably having it gated behind your Covenant campaign, similar to higher renown levels, similar to unlocking different soul binds and followers and all of those kind of things. Now listen, I'll be real, I'm actually a big fan of flying. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think it's really cool actually being on the ground at the start of every expansion and really seeing the zones for what they're worth. I think you can see a bit more actually flying that I don't necessarily notice on the ground all the time, but at this point I think flying is probably going to be a good thing. I'm actually really curious how they're going to implement flying between zones though, if you're actually able to fly between here and not actually use the random Stargate network that we have here. I'm curious to see where that goes, but for the most part I would assume that in 9.1 we do end up seeing flying to some extent in Shadowlands. I'll be real though, regardless of whatever happens at BlizzCon, whether we get tier gear, whether we get double legendaries, whether we end up hearing whatever happened to Garrosh, or I guess Arthas when he got thrown into the maw, or if we end up hearing what happens to Andor or not, I'm excited for BlizzCon this year. I was really disappointed we weren't going to be able to make it this year because of COVID and things, I guess last year in November, but I'm really gotten excited about virtual BlizzCon over the last few weeks. Once again, if you guys want to watch it, I'll be co-streaming it on my stream if you want to hang out and I guess watch it together, both that Friday and Saturday. Hopefully I have some pretty awesome stuff to react to. Oh, by the way, I totally forgot about the Wandering Ancient mount. How the Wandering Ancient won over the cat mount and other things, I actually don't understand, but I guess we're getting that as well. So yeah, Wandering Ancient, I would assume, well actually no, like we mentioned, there's a panel on the making of the Wandering Ancient. Hey, it's cool. I totally look forward to not being able to walk through doorways like every large mount that I have. I can't even walk through the Night Fae opening in Mist of Tyrna Scythe on like half my mounts, my Infernal mount. I'm excited the Wandering Ancient will probably end up being the same thing. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you had a bit of fun watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think of, I guess, what I sort of expect to see at BlizzCon in the comment section below. If you guys expect to see certain things I didn't cover, also feel free to leave it down there as well. I'm super excited to read on, I guess, what you guys think we'll see, you know. And also be sure to leave feedback on the Burning Crusade coverage thing if you feel so inclined. If you're curious, any weak horrors, profiles, or add-ons you see here, you can grab for free off my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out anytime, feel free to do so. If you guys enjoy the video and want to see more WoW content, be sure to hit the subscribe button below. Helps out a lot. Hit that like button right down there as well. Thanks again, dudes, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.